What if there was a safe space for you to explore artificial intelligence? What if there was a team of friendly professionals waiting to help you examine what you can do with AI in your courses? Welcome to the world of what if.
Hi, my name is Tanzy Wilson, and welcome to the Playground. Today's topic, AI hallucinations. What are they and how we prevent them? In 2024, businesses all over the globe lost $67.4 billion. Billion with a B. It's a lot of money, right? That's also fake. While I was preparing for this presentation, Gemini helped me develop these slides. I didn't know that Gemini would develop the whole slide for you, but it did, and it came up with that number. And I thought, that's a lot of money, seems excessive. I did some prompting and a little bit of research and found that it wasn't wrong, but it wasn't right either. I found the articles that Gemini used to gather that figure, and one article mentioned that number and immediately debunked it, and then offered a more accurate number with studies to prove it at 4.4 million. It's still a lot of money, but it's not quite the 67 billion that we talked about before. What that was a hallucination. What is a hallucination? It's a falsehood. It's something that is not correct or nonsensical, but it appears like it could be correct. How does it happen? Well, LLMs and AI, they don't know exactly what's happening. What they do instead is they trod the path most traveled. So for instance, if I say tip, you may think toe. And then if I say through, you may think the tulips, like the song. That's kind of how it works. So what happens is that once you get to a point where you may not be in a spot that is well known, it starts to sort of fill in the gaps. Let's take a look at this. AI models are 34% more likely to use confident language when generating incorrect information than when stating facts. MIT researchers said that. January of 2025. This is another image or quote that I got from the presentation that I drafted. And this is sort of fake. Can you spot why? Take a close look. Here's what stood out to me. AI models are 34% and MIT researchers. All AI models are equally 34% likely to use confident language? And who is MIT researchers? That's probably not anyone's name. It just seemed too convenient. Here's what I found out. That same article that Gemini used before, again, referenced that same article. That article has no sources. And I was really intrigued. So I looked for the article. It's MIT. Certainly I could find it, and I'm sure that they published it. And it turns out that article does not exist. MIT did do research on AI and hallucinations, but that number is non-existent in that article. Other people also thought that was curious and attempted to find that number in that article and had the same luck. So how on earth do you even spot a hallucination? Well, the easiest way is to check the sources. Look at what your AI gave you and click the links. Google authors, look up journals, follow the breadcrumbs. While you're working with an AI or an LLM, notice the contradictions, if there are any. If it starts off saying one thing, and then it continues in a different way, that's not the same or doesn't match what it started off with, that's a contradiction, and that is a red flag. Also, verify the logic. If things start to get a little silly, then it's probably hallucinating. Let's take a look at this. So the image that you see on your right or left, depending on how you're facing, is the first draft of this presentation. Out of the other things that I noticed that raised a red flag for me was that little thing that's circled at the bottom. I'm pretty sure you can't see it, so I'll tell you. It says AI safety and governance. I'm not AI safety and governance. That's definitely not my job. Also, it is not 2024. So I got a little nervous and I asked Gemini, where did you get these slides? Where did they come from? Gemini told me that it actually developed these slides through coding and CSS, which is cool, great. And then I asked it specifically about that section. Why did you put that there? And it responded, that is a classic case of an AI hallucination. And it also noted that it was matching patterns that is pretty standard for professional presentation. It makes sense, but it's not really relevant to what I'm doing, which is fine because I caught it. So how do you prevent it in the first place? There's a few things that you can do, including some safe prompts or adding some things to your prompts. One way is a chain of thought. Ask your AI, ask your LLM, how did you come to this conclusion? Walk me through your thinking. How did you get that answer? Another powerful way is to give your AI a role and make it skeptical and critical. As an example, you are a world-renowned yet highly critical expert in XYZ. These last two are my favorite. Tell your LLM, if you don't know, say I don't know. Give your AI an out. It really wants to give you an answer. So sometimes it'll give you an answer that makes no sense. Give it a way out. Another powerful way to prompt is to have your AI critique itself. Once given an answer to your question or a task, ask your AI, rate this answer from 1 through 10. How well do you think you responded or answered my questions? Do you think you followed instructions? And it will tell you. Let's see this in action. So I have some prompts here that I sort of forced a hallucination. You'll notice that I mentioned Gemini here, and this doesn't quite look like Gemini, but I'll talk about that in a moment. So here's my prompt. Do not use web search, rely only on your internal knowledge. Give me 6 academic articles with APA citations about the relationship between bungo baggins and Japanese meals. Cite in APA style. Apparently that's very important to me. So you're probably thinking, why on earth would she ask it to not search the web? Well, we're practicing, right? We have to learn how to spot a hallucination, and sometimes it's easier to spot when it's sort of glaring, and sometimes it may not be glaring. I chose this topic because while I won't say I'm an expert in Tolkien, I'm a little bit of a nerd and I think it's fun. So let's start off with the first part of what it said. It does say that there is no specific body of academic literature investigating a direct relationship between bungo baggins and Japanese meals. I knew that. Of course. It's a little disappointing, but we'll move forward. And then it goes on to say how maybe I could adjust things, and then some helpful responses and some articles. But it just told me that there are no articles. So let's see what these articles are. I know that it's hallucinating immediately. Perhaps you can too. But I know that Mythlore is an actual journal. It's peer-reviewed and it has a lot of good stuff on there. I know that this here is a journal as well. The thing is that they're 2 separate journals. They're not one journal. So I know that this here is probably not accurate. Just to make sure, I did do some research, and this article here does not exist anywhere. It is completely made up. Another hallucination that I just thought was a little bit funny is here. Again, this is an actual journal. I can't remember if it's peer-reviewed, but it is a journal. But this here I thought was a little bit silly. This article explores how Hobbit food, inherited by Bilbo from his father Bungo, serves as a cultural anchor. Bungo is Bilbo Baggins' father. However, this is weird because are you saying that Bilbo didn't have access to food until his father passed and he inherited all the food from the Shire? Weird. And probably not, right? So let's see how we can try this again without the hallucinations. So let's go ahead and take a look at this new prompt here. So I'll get this out of the way so we can see better. Again, give me 6 academic articles with APA citations about the relationship between Bungo Baggins and Japanese meals. If there are no references, let me know. Do not make anything up, okay? Here, one of my favorite constraints is an out. If you don't know, it's okay. It's not a big deal. Again, there are no academic articles or scholarly references concerning this topic. Great. And look at that, no articles. It did give me some Google search suggestions, which will probably be helpful, but I do like how it followed instructions and did not make anything up. Now, you're probably wondering, what am I using? What is this? This is not Gemini. Gemini looks like this. You're right. So here's what I did. Unless you are working on something highly specified, or maybe even for an extended period of time, it's a little bit difficult to make a lot of LLMs hallucinate glaringly. So what I did was use something called AI Studio. It's kind of like if you pop the top of Gemini and had access to all of the inner workings, and then you can adjust it. For instance, if I click here, I'll have access to previous versions of Gemini, including Nano Banana, if you are wanting to create images. If you notice that one version is a little bit better at doing certain things than another, you can change it here. But what I really want us to look at is the temperature. The temperature basically dictates which path or how closely to certain paths an AI will cling to. What I mean is, if this here is all the way at the bottom at 0, then it starts to go down the path least trodden, which means it starts to get a little silly. Conversely, if we look here, if it's the opposite, it kind of sticks to only the paths that are most trodden. And here, if we go down a little bit, we can play with whether or not Gemini or this tool will use Google at all, or any search engines at all. You may be wondering, why on earth would I want to mess with this? Well, that's a good question. It depends on what you're doing. If you want to be creative and you really want to produce something that is all on your own, but you, like me, have a little bit of blank page syndrome, you can turn off the access to the search and you can turn down the temperature. That way it may spark some sort of silliness or a thought, maybe even a little bit of inspiration, and then you can go from there. However, if you're maybe doing some coding, it's okay if some of your things look exactly like someone else's things. It's pretty standard what you're doing. Go ahead and turn up the temperature. Allow it to search Google to make sure it's doing what you ask. It really depends on what you need. Now, let's see if we can replicate this in regular old Gemini. I have my prompt here, and I'll read it one more time, just so we're all on the same page. Give me 6 academic articles with APA citations about the relationship between Bungo and Japanese meals. If there are no references, let me know. Do not make anything up. And this is just to show you that I'm not trying to fool anyone. And let's see what happens. I imagine I thought it would take longer. I guess not. Probably because there really are no references or academic articles on this, but there are no articles, and it really tried. I think this is the only correlation between these two. But if we needed some creativity or anything, we have AI Studio. And if you don't use Gemini or you prefer other LLMs, ChatGPT has their version, Copilot has their version, and so on and so forth. To conclude, I do think that it is important that we don't take AI at face value. It is a tool and it's not perfect. It's up to you to sort of fine-tune what it gives you. That being said, thank you for coming to my playground.